John, talk nerdy to us.
Hey everyone, my name is John. I'm a software engineer with about 10 years of experience. I've worked for big tech and household names like Capital One and Amazon. I also have a PhD in economics where I studied the return to post-secondary alternative credentials. So you can think of like coding boot camps, online courses, certifications, stuff like that. And I founded Latterly.io, which is open source and free. And then you can upgrade for additional features, but the free tier will give you a step-by-step checklist of what you need to do to learn to code and land a programming role.
What all led you to wanting to put together Latterly? And then I guess like other than the checklist, like what all could you expect through Latterly?
It took me about a year to learn to code and then land a full-time software engineering role. In hindsight, I think I could have done that faster if I took more seriously the social component, right? So if I had gotten a mentor or if I had joined a community, instead of doing a mistake that I think a lot of people do is I can do this myself with YouTube. And that inspired me to create Latterly. So looking for open source alternatives, there's Free Code Camp, which at first glance is great. And it is pretty great, like check it out. But there are some modules that are outdated. It's missing some stuff that I think is important. And basically trying to create my own Free Code Camp is how this started. And so it's just got all the bells and whistles that I wish Free Code Camp had, including a minimalist step-by-step checklist. So for example, if you go to Free Code Camp, they'll give you a menu of a dozen or more, I think, possible certifications for all different sorts of roles. In one way, it's nice. In another way, it creates an analysis paralysis problem. It's like, if I want to get into tech, which one do I pick? Like, do I want to go for DevOps or data analysis? So Latterly gives you one path, an intelligent default. And then if you want to switch out, we just ask you sort of why and make sure you're thinking through it.
Once you learn one language, it's a lot easier to switch and pick up different languages.
100%. So Learn React, not Python has a couple things to unpack there. One is that React isn't a language, right? It's a rendering library. The cool thing about React is that you can start with JavaScript and incrementally upgrade to TypeScript. You can also work the front end and the back end, all using this one framework. That's one thing that's really nice about it. JavaScript is the only language that's a full stack language. You can build an entire app with JavaScript. You can't do that with Python. So I do say start with JavaScript, upgrade to TypeScript as soon as you can, and then pick up another language later on. Today, I probably code in like 5 different languages. That's taken me 10 years. But to your point, Joe, like each one got a little bit easier. We could talk about some war stories back in the day where I'm using Visual Basic. Obviously, if you want to do data science, like Python is for sure the way to go. I don't think that's a good fit for most people, but that would be an example where if you have a really strong reason, maybe you have a background in statistics, so you're kind of an unusual case, and then data analysis is a better fit.
So for me, I've always heard that Python was like one of the easier languages to learn, which is why I started to learn it. But for someone that has no code experience, you would 100% suggest React because it allows you to do front end, back end, and kind of just everything through JavaScript.
I do. And by the way, I say learn React, not Python, because Python is like the next best option. Like these are the two languages we talk about when we say, what is a beginner-friendly language? It's JavaScript and Python. And that's like always the hot debate is which side of this do you fall on? And the way I fall is let's go for JavaScript because it's full stack. You get access to more job opportunities and it's visual. So this improves the learning feedback loop. And the fact that with Python, I'm kind of biasing into a data science world. And I just want people to be intentional about that. If that is your intention, by all means, go for it. But if you want to be a software engineer, you can check out Indeed, LinkedIn, or many other job boards. You're going to see a lot more opportunities with JavaScript.
So Latterly gives you the core skills that you need. What is it that it does that helps you actually land a job?
So everything is very specific. I'll say, based on this research, currently this month, and stuff changes over time, but currently there's these 2 boot camps who are the best. And I can give you those if you want to drop names.
Let them know.
By all means, if they're the best, let's hear it.
In November 2023, there's 2 boot camps that I recommend specifically. That is Springboard and Career Foundry. I have emailed these people asking for referral fees because I've sent them a bunch of people, but I actually don't get a kickback today. The reason that I recommend these is because they have employer brand recognition.
How would you compare those to, say, like the Meta or the Google certificates that you can get online?
Awesome. I love this question. The answer is I use an OR operator. I use an OR operator, which means there's a paper that I have, you can look it up on SSRN, called Hirability and Educational Prestige. And I say that there are two groups of prestigious alternative credentials. We're really nerding out now. I love it. The two groups are a prestigious coding bootcamp or a Fortune 50 learning provider. So how do I compare against Google, Microsoft, Amazon? They just get in sort of through the Fortune 50 carve out. So it's true. There's really great name recognition for the Google certs. Another great one that I recommend, and this is on the checklist in Latterly. In general, I don't recommend MOOCs or online courses, and we can talk about why. But if you're going to pick one, the best in the industry today, it is the Coursera course with Meta.
So why don't you recommend them?
The placement rate is a lot lower. Historically, only even 5% of people would complete a MOOC from sign up to complete. Given that you complete, what are the odds that you get an interview, that you pass the interview, and that you get a job? And then if you get that job, how well paying is it, right? And then what's the career trajectory from there? So this is like the labor market pipeline. If you go specifically to some of these top level modern MOOCs, like the Coursera with Meta, and the placement rate is around 25%. The good thing is, compared to the history of MOOCs, that's a killer record. The bad news is, compared to any like high-level boot camp or any high-level college, if MIT had a 25% placement rate, they'd be wiped off the map next month, right?
You're a lot more motivated to get a job and to complete it if you're paying a lot more money. They may cost $20, right? Or they may be completely free. So there's not a lot of skin in the game. You go and drop several $1,000s on a boot camp or several $1,000s on a degree, you're most likely going to be highly motivated to finish.
I have 2 degrees and don't use either one of them. So
you can check out the Stack Overflow developer survey to see what sorts of degrees developers have. Interestingly, most software developers either don't have a degree or have a degree in a non-computer science field. So CS degrees, we call it the traditional path, but it's less than half of the programmers in the industry.
So let's talk about the prices. They cost so much. Are they worth it outside of the 2 that you recommend?
Great questions. Great questions. There's a lot to go through there. Good thing we're nerding out. The first thing I would point out is that Springboard and Career Foundry are below the average bootcamp price. They also both have job guarantees. You'll often hear about the return on investment. And education is an investment. You're spending money to get something in return, right? One of the things that's often missed is risk. You don't just want a high return, you want a high risk-adjusted return. So most coding bootcamps don't have a job guarantee. These 2 do. The change in the return on investment is small. The change in the risk-adjusted return on investment is massive. It's like 10x. So these prestigious coding bootcamps, and I'll give you the rule here real quick. This is the top 2% of coding bootcamps. They're built different, right? They're built different. So I tell people, don't go to a coding bootcamp. Go to a prestigious coding bootcamp. Don't get a certification. Get a prestigious certification. There's a website called interviewing.io where they hire big tech engineers to do real practice interviews with you. So you sort of pay them and they give you a real interview and they give you real feedback.
That's cool.
Yeah, one of the problems we see is that like job candidates don't get good feedback, right? they're like, it felt like, and I'm sure, Joe, you can relate to this. Probably you talk to people and they'll ask you for feedback and you're like, I can't help you, man. They're not telling me anything either.
Yeah, or you have to be very careful what you say with the feedback you were given because, being sued.
So interviewing.io, by default, you and the interviewer are co-anonymized. So they don't have to worry about that. There's an option if you sort of do a post-interview survey on each other. And if you both select to reveal, you can reveal your identity to each other. And maybe you can get a referral over to Meta or a Google or something like that. But by default, it's anonymized. And so they will give you clear feedback. And I've used it. It helped me get an offer at Google that I turned down because my current employer made me a better offer than Google.
Take that, Google.
Yeah, Google.
I don't know if that's a bigger plug for my current employer for interviewing.io. The point that I want to get to is Aline Lerner is the founder of this. And she blogged basically a similar thing to what I'm saying, which is don't get a certification and don't put it on your LinkedIn. That's really counterintuitive, right? Of course you want certifications on your LinkedIn. The reason we're saying that is to get attention. You don't want the average one. You don't want a normal one. there are certain ones that are really powerful and a bunch that are a total waste of your time and money. And our time is really valuable, right? So you can check out her blog article at the interviewing.io blog. Coursera is one that works well. And so that's one that Laterally recommends. Another, I think, is TripleByte, and there are some others. Udacity would be one that doesn't work well, that is very popular, but it doesn't really work.
What about Udemy?
It's in between. So I forget exactly where it lands, but it's better than Udacity and worse than Coursera. And so that's why I recommend Coursera. Even if Udemy is good, there's like this better other thing. So why would I recommend it? You know,
The two boot camps that you recommend, what is the time commitment to those?
These two both have part-time and full-time options. Some of my research shows that employers do care about how long your boot camp took. If they hear that you completed your boot camp in a weekend, they're suspicious.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm learning in a weekend, you know?
They're suspicious, and they're right to be suspicious. And employers are also suspicious if you say you went to a boot camp that took you more than 2 years. Like, that's weird too, right? Why don't you just have a degree?
Yeah, just go to college at that point.
Yeah.
There is kind of a sweet spot, and Springboard and Career Foundry fall right into the sweet spot. Something like a 4 to 10 month range.
So do you only help people getting in through the software engineer career path, or do you have any intentions of expanding laterally to help people with like PMO certifications, like Scrum Master, PMP, and things of that nature, or do you only focus on engineering?
So the Laterally curriculum is built around software engineering. If you're going to break into tech, I think you should start with software engineering, and I recommend a 3 strikes rule. Try programming. If you don't like it, try another programming language. If you don't like it, try a third. And if you don't like it, probably shouldn't be a software engineer. But I can tell you that building a data visualization application with the graphs is a whole different ballgame than building like a Discord bot or building a video game. Like, these are totally different animals. And there's different things that are fun or not fun about them. Like, maybe you're a person, you're really nerdy and you like the data analysis and you want to get into the database and do statistics and do some science. Maybe experiment in science is really your thing. Or maybe you're the person who's like really into art and like the whole like databases are gross. You just want to like make cool interactive experiences. Really, you can actually map out personality types to job roles within software engineering. So I say give it 3 strikes. If none of those work out for you, we can explore sibling roles like Scrum Master, Product Manager. But I would not start with those. And the reason is just because employers want more software engineers than they want Scrum Masters, for example.
You have 5 developers to 1 Scrum Master, you know?
Exactly. And Scrum Master is like not necessarily an easy role. Like, I respect some of the Scrum Masters that I've worked with and they help me out a lot. The reality is they're usually getting paid less than me and they're doing just as much work. You want to try software engineering first and then pivot later if needed. This is this concept of intelligent defaults. When I talk about JavaScript, learn React, not Python. I want you to start here. And if you don't like it, or if you have a good reason, let's pivot. But what I'm trying to get away from is this problem. You have tech influencers like me, and some of them think they're being nuanced and they won't tell you where to start. You say, which programming language should I start with? And they say, well, it depends. But which one? So I think it's on us as the teachers and the influencers to provide context people don't have and give them an informed guidance.
Let's talk about the day-to-day of a software developer, because people on the outside looking in, they picture somebody wearing a hoodie, they got it up, right? Like just all day, every day, just clickety-clacking in.
We do wear hoodies. It's important to mention that. It's fun, but it's not the most important part of software engineering. Some of the most important things in software engineering are the most boring. They don't make day-in-the-life videos about this. Me staring at a broken Jenkins build for 6 hours. Like, there are days like this. And this is one of the reasons that many employers like the college degree, because what the college degree is telling them is not that you know the details of JavaScript syntax, but that you can put up with prolonged periods of boring work. So earlier I said less than half of professional programmers have a computer science degree. That's true, but 80% of them have some sort of degree.
Put up with so much nonsense to get my degrees. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And there's a lot of nonsense. One of the hardest parts of being a software engineer is working with people. So we think about getting away from people and getting into my IDE, and I'm just coding and dealing with a system. And the system never lies to you, right? And there's this things versus person distinction. And we think about the stereotypical person in software engineering is things oriented rather than person oriented. Earlier, I talked about how in reality, you can actually map different personalities to different roles within software engineering. And this is true. And this is where diversity comes in. Don't think about the stereotype. There may be a lot of people who fit that stereotype. I assure you, there's a lot of people who don't fit that stereotype. And we want a diversity of personalities and views. It helps us think of new solutions we wouldn't have thought of. And it helps our processes go better. When you have people that can work with other people, who'd have thought? So one of the major gaps, whether this is a computer science graduate or a bootcamp graduate, one of the major gaps in the eyes of employers is soft skills. So some of the most important things that software engineers do are boring, neglected. They don't get you famous on TikTok. Also includes things you already have. That's the good news. That's communication skills. And that's Google searching. I cannot tell you how important it is to be able to Google search. And in the future, I think we'll see an increasing trend. We're already seeing this. We're professional chat GPT users.
Every day on LinkedIn, you see fear-mongering assholes who are like, oh, don't be a software engineer. The chat GPT's taking your job, right? It's going away. How does AI fit into software engineering moving forward?
I use it every day. It's not taking my job. It's making my job easier. And it's not taking students out of school. It's making school easier for students. And it does slightly alter the skill set and that I need to know how to use it. But first of all, it's not a difficult skill set to learn because the thing follows natural language. And second of all, the fact that we need to learn new skills is an advantage to the person who is not a professional software engineer. It puts them on a level playing field with someone who is a professional software engineer. They both need to learn the new thing. And this is something that's really nice about breaking into tech in general, because all they have to learn is the new important thing. And they pretty much go to the top of the resume stack. And I definitely recommend GPT-4. Like, I don't go to Google as my first step anymore. And this is included, by the way, in the Latterly checklist. And this is also missing, by the way, from many coding boot camps. How to search, how to Google search, how to use ChatGPT is a really important
prompt engineering, man. It's so important.
I feel like it's like super cool that you got into tech a certain way. Like you did not go the standard path. And then you put all of this time and research into helping other people like get into tech a better way than you. Like, you had to figure it out. You took the long way, right? You said it took like over a year to get in. It could have been faster if you would have done like more mentoring, networking, that kind of thing. Can you touch on that a little bit about like the community, that kind of thing?
So the community in Latterly is still fairly small. One of the things the Latterly curriculum does is that it will point you to other prominent communities. So there are large communities like the Free Code Camp. There's a Discord for React developers called Reactiflux. So there's a few of these sort of like mega Discords with millions of users, and it has pros and cons there, right? So the benefit is that you get exposure to a bunch of opportunities, but none of these opportunities are, you don't have a deep relationship with these people. So then there are also smaller Discords and influencer-led Discords. One of those is like Latterly and I. There is a young lady on TikTok named Ella. So she has Ella Studies, which is a really great Discord, influencer-led. I'm a big fan of Discord-driven development. Besides that, and besides social media, the third sort of community would be interest-based communities. So Latterly has an endorsed communities markdown file in the open source repository on GitHub. And I list like a bunch of these communities, and I encourage people to join 2 of them. You don't want to join like 10, because then you don't develop real relationships. But pick 2 or 3, maybe one from each category, a big one, a small one, an interest-based one, because they do good work and they get people jobs, and you're developing a deeper relationship when you take an approach like that.
Yeah, I like the fact that you say keep it minimal to 2 or 3. I've seen people just shotgun groups, and they'll get on and they'll like, or they might say like one thing, but like you're not carrying on conversations. You're not getting to know the people. Me and Joe are both in, the business of relationship building, and building relationships is an art, like actually getting to know people, active listening, asking the right questions.
Absolutely. Nothing else for me. I would say check out latterly.io. I'd love to see you on the Discord, and feel free to reach out. I appreciate y'all's time so much.
Thanks, John. We appreciate you, man. Thank you.